I'm very glad to be here today, and I want to share my story with you. For several years now, we've been having a real crisis at Europe's southern borders. Refugees, uprooted and displaced by more and more war, religious persecution, famines, discrimination, and ethnic cleansing, have tried to reach the EU to claim asylum and to find refuge. As a response, safe ways of doing that, for example, through traveling by airplane or ferry, have been mostly abolished since the 1990s, pushing many of the most desperate to try to cross in flimsy, unseaworthy boats. Nowhere has this caused more death than in the vast, unforgiving area of the central Mediterranean Sea, between Libya, Sicily, and Malta. Initial responses by states were strong. The German Navy alone rescued more than 17,000 people from drowning in just over a year in 2017, alongside navies and coast guards from all over Europe. But due to the rise of the far right, governmental life-saving efforts have been shut down in recent years, in the hope of deterring refugees from starting their journey. But the numbers don't lie. Empirically, that rationale, even if well-intentioned, has been disproven. Most people fleeing continue to make it on their own, but the number of deaths and shipwrecks has unfortunately skyrocketed. Human traffickers do not care whether their cargo survives the trip. In fact, they have an interest in people crossing in flimsy boats with minimum fuel, so they can recapture them and cash in twice on people's desperation. Therefore, while navies and coast guards unfortunately are kept from performing their duties for political reasons, men, women, and children continue to drown on a daily basis. Now, this is where we come in. We are a Swiss charitable organization. We are a non-profit, and our team is exclusively composed of volunteers. Since 2015, we pioneer civil aviation to help people in need. That's our motto. And to give a bit of an overview of our activities, in our team, we unite the skills of airline pilots, flight instructors, mechanics, and other aviation specialists from 10 different countries to make a difference where it really matters. We have, for example, developed a new airdrop system that permits us to deliver sensitive, high-value equipment, like vaccines, for example, at low cost and with pinpoint accuracy from any civilian aircraft. That's an aviation industry first in the civil sector. In another project, we help identify and prosecute illegal fishing practices in the Mediterranean that lay waste to the environment and destroy local fishing communities. Our goal is always to harness the experience and dedication of our members for a good cause, irrespective of race, religion, sex, or political affiliation, solely focusing on how aviation can turn a situation around for the better. Now back to the central Mediterranean. As the situation there got from bad to worse, we decided to do something about that, partnering up with the German charity Sea-Watch for proper nautical expertise. The contribution we can deliver from above is threefold. First of all, we can spot boats in distress from the air. It then looks like that roughly. It's an example from 2018. And we can alert rescue coordination centers, as well as the few dedicated rescue vessels that remain operational. Secondly, by means of our mere presence in the area, we can deter human traffickers from recapturing people to make a bigger profit. Here you can see one of these recapture attempts, the small white boat at the top. Those are people from Libya who traffic these people, trying to recapture them. By being there, we can gather evidence against that and document that properly. And thirdly, we can systematically gather data about what's really going on in the central Mediterranean. And that helps stem the flood of fake news and propaganda on the whole topic of migration. We collect number and position of boats, casualty figures, time and location of shipwrecks, and criminal refuses to rescue boats by passing vessels in the area. This info we make available to the general public, but also to parliaments to fight misinformation with hard evidence. In the end, our operation has had quite an impact. In over 2,000 hours of operations, we have helped ensure that more than 25,000 people are rescued to a safe place. We have cooperated with coast guards, rescue vessels, but also merchant ships to make sure people we spot in the water are rescued as soon as possible. This has been possible with the simplest of technology, light aircraft and binoculars. We have repurposed highly efficient piston aircraft like the Cyrus SR-22 or the Beech Baron 58 as effective observation platforms. This has been possible by equally repurposing our piloting skills acquired as commercial pilots, flying for airlines or in general aviation. And air crews donate their time, while a massive number of small donations ensures sufficient funding for our operations. Now, this may sound like a mere band-aid applied to a deep, gaping wound. That's not the wrong characterization, but it also beats doing nothing, hands down, any time. Our intervention for now is the most effective one in the Central Med since the beginning of the withdrawal of state rescue resources in 2017. I mean, for sure, the government could do our job much better, but unfortunately, in the meantime, we have to step in. And our strategy to collect and publish factual evidence about what's really happening at sea is starting to pay off, building more and more public pressure on actors to abide by the law and to start rescuing people. What I'd like to do next is share with you one typical case from last summer that shows you the full spectrum of our operation. In July 2020, we spotted a small overloaded wooden boat in distress. There were about 40 people on board, and the boat was dead in the water, a few dozen miles south of Malta. There were moderate seas, but high waves and winds were coming in later that day with a line of thunderstorms from the northwest. No dedicated rescue vessel was at sea or even in the area. Just one livestock transporter 10 nautical miles to the north, the motor vessel Thalia from Beirut on the way to Barcelona. We contacted her on the radio and informed the bridge about the distress case. The captain, Mohammed Shaban from Syria, immediately turned his ship around and proceeded to the small boat in distress. To give you an idea about the proportion, I collected the picture from that day. To the left, you see the livestock carrier, and to the right, you see the small boat in distress. Dead in the water, immobile. We also sent our information to the RCC Malta to make sure that they took over coordination of the rescue effort. So the information was immediately forwarded to the Responsible Rescue Coordination Center. But we soon realized we also had a big problem. The Thalia satellite communication system was out of order, and she was beyond radio range to call Malta because of the curvature of the horizon. So the captain was faced with a hard choice. Either take the people on board without having talked to his own people on shore, to his shore support, and to the Rescue Coordination Center, or abandon the people to move into radio range, but also then risk the people drowning in the meantime without shelter from the weather. To get out of that dilemma, we decided to improvise. We managed, because of our great endurance with the aircraft, to orbit over the scene and to simply relay his radio messages through our own satellite communications equipment, kind of like a flying phone switchboard. And our presence had another second beneficial effect. Not long after we started relaying communications, a Maltese military aircraft came on scene. To be honest, we in the cockpit already feared the worst, because in the past, such aircraft, like the ones operated by EU agencies, had often been used to issue illegal instructions to abandon people, so that Libyan militias could pick them up later and return them to the vicious cycle of human trafficking. That process is illegal, first of all, because it's in the Maltese area of responsibility, geographically defined, but also because Libya is not a safe place for those people. The aircraft inquired whether we were in the area, and after receiving information and confirmation from air traffic control, instead issued instructions to the Thalia to keep protecting the boat in distress and to, I quote, take the people on board if the weather got worse, end of quote. In the end, that's what happened. The people were disembarked, taken to a place of safety, after the captain insisted on his duty to not abandon the people at sea. Now, of course, by far the greatest impact for this positive outcome lay with the captain and his crew. They chose the risk of being blocked for weeks for doing the right legal thing, over letting helpless, innocent people behind. Our role was merely a supporting one. We identified the boat in distress, pointed it out to the captain, and facilitated communications after his technical problems. But we also protected the people against being abandoned or left at sea by being there as a witness and documenting what was going on. For sure, a pretty good outcome. 38 people in the end were alive and well, who, without the Thalia, but also without us flying that mission on that day, would have been another 38 souls abandoned and lost to the Mediterranean. Now you may ask yourself, and legitimately so, what does it all have to do with me? I'm not a pilot, I'm not nautically rated, I'm not a photographer. What's my role there? What do I have to do with that? I mean, first of all, there are of course other ways to help for sure, but that's not our topic today. More importantly, the structural principles of our approach are sound and can be transferred to other crucial questions of our time, those that we heard before already in the talks before the meditation. If you identify practical, useful skills that you have, and that which might be of common benefit, if you realize what's going on in the world around you, where policies are badly failing. I mean, we can take, of course, mass death at our doorstep here in Europe, but we can also take child poverty or the climate crisis, inequality of opportunity, or mass disinformation, just to name a few examples. And if you finally find like-minded people and together use simple, off-the-shelf technology for direct action, then you can make a big difference. Because, I mean, in the end, we are citizens and we need to behave as such. If our governments fail miserably, that does not mean that all is well or that we are absolved of responsibility. It means we need to step up and do what we can until we have convinced the majority of our fellow citizens in our democratic republics to solve the systematic problems of our time through systematic policy. So in the end, that's what we need to do. Reclaim the public space by employing skills and technology already at our disposal. That's the difference between just sitting every crisis out like a mere subject and properly doing our part as citizens. You'll also discover that going public, taking care of the world in this way is not only crucial and at times even necessary. I mean, imagine if nobody had ever done this, but also an incredibly rewarding experience, even in such a sad circumstance, precisely because it is not merely private. It is not for gain or for economy, but for the benefit of our community in the end. That's what I would like to invite you to do today. To take a good and honest look at our common world and ask yourself, until the big solutions get here, what can I, with my skills, do in the meantime? Not to stand idly on the sidelines any longer, waiting for the perfect solution, but to take action. The best available to you right here, right now. It is time. Thank you very much.